Hello and welcome to this bite-sized economics video on supply, or as some economists call it, S. So, first off, what is supply? Well, it's basically just the amount of a good or a service that a firm or business can supply to consumers. And it's important that you are able to distinguish between a movement in the supply curve and a shift of the supply curve. So, a movement along a supply curve only occurs when price changes, judging on the basis that everything else remains the same. So, movements caused by a change in price. A shift in the supply curve, on the other hand, is caused by firms producing more of a good or service, because that then means that quantity can jump outwards. So, firms producing more or less of a good or service. And it can also be because of an increase or a decrease in the factors of production. And in case you don't know what the factors of production are, I've discussed that in a previous video that you can watch. So a change of any of the other influences on supply will induce a shift. So change in influences of supply causes a shift. And these are the influencing factors here. So if these change, they cause what I've just said, a shift, as this affects a firm's willingness to supply at any given price. So, right, what do all these little notes I've put here mean? What are the influencing factors? Well, one of the influencing factors are the price of a good or service. So changing the price will induce firms to change their supply decision. It changes their whole thought process on the amount of good or service they want to produce. So if the price falls, firms are going to find it less profitable to supply the good, and then they're going to reduce the amount they're supplying. And this causes a movement along the supply curve to a newer, lower quantity. Production costs are also another factor. So they cause an inward shift. An increase in production costs causes an inward shift as less can be supplied for the same price. Technology here I've also got. So this causes an outward shift because technology often causes the cost of production to lower. So that means that firms can produce more. So there's an outward shift, effectively. Taxes and subsidies. So taxes usually mean an increase in the cost to produce, because this means that the firms will be prepared to supply less because their costs of production are increasing. So that means that there's going to be an inward movement of the supply curve. However, subsidies I've got here. So if the government pay firms a subsidy to produce a particular good, usually one that's got good external benefits, then it's going to induce the firm to want to supply more output at any given price, and this causes an outward shift. So because government's given the firm more, it doesn't lower the overall factors of the overall cost of production, but it lowers the cost that the firm's got to pay to the cost of production. So that's why there's that outward shift. If there is a shift to supplying a different, so here the price of other goods. So if the firm decides to shift to supplying a different, more profitable good, then if they can't compete with substitutes. So if there's too many substitutes, or the market is too overcrowded with too many goods, it's too competitive, then they're going to decide to produce a different good where the market isn't as competitive. So that influences the amount that they want to supply of one particular good. Firms might also delay the supply if they think prices will rise in the future. And that's why here I've got price expectation, because if they think that at the moment, say they're selling, a block of butter for £1, but they're thinking that next year they're going to be able to sell it for £2, they're going to say, right, okay, well, we'll just stop selling it for the moment when it's not that profitable, and we're going to save all our goods to then be able to produce them next year when we can make loads more money. Or butter isn't always the best example, actually, because it's not a perishable good. So say they were selling Lego bricks, and they decided to save up all the Lego bricks and then sell them the year after when it's more profitable. And lastly, labour productivity. So if labour productivity rises, then output per worker rises, which then means that they can supply more, and that's going to cause an outward shift. So these influencing factors have kind of summarised my point here. They're all linking to this shift. Alright, okay, hope you learnt a bit more on supply. If you want to see any other microeconomics or macroeconomic videos, then head to my YouTube channel at Bite Size Economics.